Hi, Niagara Street School third graders. This is Mr. Forgione, and a few of you are probably thinking right now, wait a minute, that's not my teacher. And you might be right. I am working with Miss LaBelle and Miss Snyder. The three of us are working together for our third grade classes to do this Journeys presentation to you. So sometimes it'll be Miss Snyder talking to you, sometimes it'll be Mrs. LaBelle, and sometimes Mr. Forgione. And today I'm going to be doing our read aloud this week of our anchor text for lesson 17. And it's the story is called the Albertosaurus Mystery. So I get to try to pronounce that the whole time. Albertosaurus Mystery. It sounds like a pretty cool story. Just to continue off something Miss Snyder just said when she introduced the vocabulary to you, her riddle of the week that she gave you, and it was what do you do if you find a blue stegosaurus? What do you find if you find a blue stegosaurus? I don't know if any of you thought about this riddle, and I'm going to give you the answer. So what do you do when you find a blue stegosaurus? You know what? I'm going to wait to the end of this story to make sure you're going to watch to the end of the video. I'll tell you the answer after I read the story. So this week, again, our anchor text is called the Albertosaurus Mystery, and it's about dinosaurs. And one of the things we do every week when we do our journeys is talk about the essential question. And this week's essential question is, what can fossils tell us about the past? What can fossils tell us about the past? Now, before you answer, a couple of you probably like, ooh, I know what it is. I know. I always tell my class, think about it, put it in your head, and we're going to talk about it later in the week, and you're actually going to write about it. So for now, just keep in mind as we're reading the story, what can fossils tell us about the past, and why is it important to our story this week? Okay? All right, so we're going to get started here, and like I said, our story, as I say it again, Albertosaurus Mystery, Philip Curie's Hunt in the Badlands. And the genre of the story is informational. It's an informational text. And as we know, informational text is something that's it's usually nonfiction. It tells us something that's true. And when you're reading it, we look for certain things, headings that break apart the story. We would look at for photographs that have like captions and cut lines and things like that. And we're looking for graphics such as like a timeline or things like that. Okay? Our author is T.V. Padma. All right. So the Albertosaurus Mystery. Philip Curie's Hunt in the Badlands. So as you notice, right off the bat, we have a heading, we have a photo of them, and a little bit of a cut line here. So this says, searching without a map. And the cut line says, many fossils are buried in Canada's Badlands. More than 40 kinds of dinosaurs once lived there. Philip Curie was thirsty and tired. It was one of the hottest summer days of 1997. He and his team were looking for fossils that belonged to a dinosaur called the Albertosaurus. Another picture of the Badlands here in Canada. The Badlands of Western Canada are full of hills. Philip didn't know which hill held Brown's fossils. Almost 90 years earlier, a famous fossil hunter named Barnum Brown had found a fossil field in Western Canada's Badlands. Many Albertosaurus were buried in it. Philip was trying to find this place again. It was like looking for a needle in a haystack. Brown had not made a map or written down where he had found the fossils. Philip had few clues, just some notes and 4 old photos. All right, so we're going to move on to the next heading, Discovery. The team was running out of water. Everyone except Philip went back to the camp. He continued on with the search. Sandflies and mosquitoes bit him. His head hurt. Philip had seen the remains of Brown's campsite earlier in the day. He knew the bones must be close. And this is a photo of the campground. Philip was trying to find the location of the Albertosaurus fossils shown in Brown's old photograph. All alone, Philip climbed another hill. He stopped to hold up a photo. It looked just like the scene in front of him. He also could see that years ago someone had dug into the rock there. Philip had found Brown's bone bed. So again, there's a photo. He's kind of comparing it to what the old photo to what he's looking at now. It says Brown's photo was old, but Philip could see that the hills still looked the same. Holes or cuts in rocky hills are clues that someone might have dug there before. All right, so this kind of goes back in time now. So it was Philip. He was doing the search in present day, or back in 1997, and then now it's kind of go back to tell this other gentleman's story and how that came to be. So Barnum the Bone Hunter. Barnum Brown grew up in Kansas in the late 1800s. His family dug and sold coal. Young Barnum saw his first fossil when the family plow accidentally pulled one out of the ground. Brown went on to study fossils. He found that he liked digging up bones more than learning about them in class. So he left Columbia University to become a bone hunter for the American Museum of Natural History in New York City. Brown was very good at finding fossils. Henry Fairfield Osborne, the head of the museum, joked that Brown could smell fossils. News writers called him Mr. Bones. And this is a little picture of him, this Barnum Brown. And it says, at the American Museum of Natural History in New York City, Brown helped put together the bones that he found. So he's actually working with some bones right there. Finding the first T-Rex. Cool picture right here. And in 1908, Brown found this T-Rex skeleton. It can be seen at the American Museum of Natural History. So again, when we talked about earlier, this is the informational story. This is nonfiction, meaning it's real. This is a real person that really found this. So it's a kind of a cool story about the history. In the early 1900s, Brown dug up the Tyrannosaurus Rex skeletons, first in Wyoming and later in Montana. These were the first T-Rex skeletons ever found. For several years, Brown returned to Montana to dig for fossils. The bones he found there were often stuck in hard rock. He sometimes used dynamite to get them out. Then, in 1910, a terrible thing happened in Brown's life. His wife died. Brown tried to forget his sadness by hunting for more fossils. He rafted down Red Deer River Canyon in Canada. He camped in the area and looked for bones. Soon, Brown made a surprising discovery. All right, next chapter head, next title, Finding Many Meat Eaters. In Canada, Brown found a place where many skeletons were buried. The skeletons belonged to the Albertosaurus, a large meat-eating dinosaur. It was the first time anyone had found the bones of so many meat-eating dinosaurs in the same spot. Brown dug up some of the old bones. He wrote only a few lines about his find, but didn't say how unusual it was. He didn't say why he thought so many individuals of the same species were together. He didn't tell what the discovery might mean. The Albertosaurus bones were sent to the museum and put away. There, they lay in a basement storage room for many years with older dinosaur fossils. And this is a picture of the actual bones, the one put together, the Albertosaurus. Albertosaurus got its name because the dinosaur's fossils were first found in Alberta, Canada. So, my friends, third grade friends, you might remember how we studied Canada at the beginning of the year. Alberta is one of the provinces that we kind of were talking about. Next header, a fierce family. Albertosaurus was part of a family of fierce meat-eating dinosaurs called, this one's a tough one, called Tyrannosaurids. Tyrannosaurids, not too hard, I guess. Tyrannosaurus Rex was also part of that family. Albertosaurus was smaller than the Tyrannosaurus Rex, but it was strong. Albertosaurus could see and smell well. It had many sharp teeth. Its huge, powerful jaws could crush bone. Like Tyrannosaurus Rex, Albertosaurus lived and hunted alone. At least that's what paleontologists thought. One man was about to change their thinking, however. He had some ideas about these ancient creatures. Now remember what the story said is, and it just shows that Albertosaurus like to hunt alone. However, this guy, Mr. Brown, Barnum Brown, he found a bunch of their bones together. So for some reason they're together, even though they like to hunt alone. And this is a little picture of it. It's kind of showing what the Albertosaurus Rex looks like compared to the T-Rex. It says Tyrannosaurus Rex was about 40 feet long. Albertosaurus was about 30 feet long. So you can see it's a little bit. The T-Rex is a little bit more bigger, a little larger. All right, so back to this Philip Curie, present day, who's trying to find more about Mr. Brown's discovery. So in 1976, Philip Curie read what Brown wrote about the site full of Albertosaurus. At that time, most paleontologists thought tyrannosaurids lived alone. If so, asked Philip, why were many of these animals buried together? Had they died together? Had they lived together? Some plant-eating dinosaurs had lived in groups. Maybe some of the meat-eaters that hunted them did too, thought Philip. After all, big groups of animals were hard to hunt alone. Maybe Albertosaurus hunted in packs. Philip was busy learning about many kinds of fossils and dinosaurs, however. He put his questions away for many years, just as Brown had put away his fossils. And this is a quick picture. Albertosaurus had about 70 teeth in its gigantic jaws. The bones in the basement. The American Museum of Natural History, where Brown's Albertosaurus fossils were stored. The fossil foot bone from an Albertosaurus was first discovered by Barnum Brown in Alberta, Canada, and then rediscovered by Philip Curie in New York City. So here's the fossil of the foot. And again, as we're talking about this informational text, these types of things are common in informational stories. A lot of pictures, a lot of extra information for the reader. Philip thought about his questions again 20 years later. This time, however, something happened that made him hunt for answers. Philip came across some Albertosaurus bones in the basement of the American Museum of Natural History, the museum where Barnum Brown had worked. He could tell that the bones were from the Badlands in Canada, where Brown had been searching for fossils. Philip saw that Brown had found at least 9 Albertosauruses in one spot. He had also saw that Brown had taken only a few bones from each animal. More bones were still buried in the Badlands, waiting to be discovered. The bones in the Badlands, and this is another graphic, but this shows you can see it up here. It shows North America, so it shows United States, and then as we learned, Canada's right above it. And this is a little bit of a more in-depth picture, like a closer look at Canada, where, remember, it was found in Alberta, and it kind of shows you where on the map. It says, place where Philip rediscovered its Albertosaurus fossil site, first found by Barnum Brown. So this goes back to the beginning of the story, where he's at that the same campsite, looking for more bones. Philip discovered more than bones at the museum. He also found Brown's field notes and a photo of Brown's site. Using these clues, Philip was able to find the bone bed. Locating the spot was just the first step, however. Philip and his team worked for months to dig out each fossil. At least 22 Albertosaurus were buried in the rock. After the work was done, a new question came up. Did finding many fossils together prove that the animals had lived, died, and even hunted in a group? And this is a picture of an actual picture of Philip Curie uncovering Albertosaurus bones in the Badlands. In the days of Barnum Brown, fossil hunters were not always able to keep good records. Today, paleontologists carefully record their findings with photographs, drawings, maps, and reports, which is what we've seen throughout the story. So what may have happened? That's what we really want to know. What did he discover? What was his conclusion? Philip knew there could be other reasons for the fossils being together. Many of these ideas only brought up more questions, however. For example, the Albertosaurus could have died in quicksand, yet different kinds of dinosaurs could die in quicksand. Philip had found the fossils of only one kind, the Albertosaurus. Maybe the Albertosaurus had gathered to lay eggs. If so, however, the fossils should have been about the same age and size. Yet Philip had found small, young animals as well as large, old animals. Philip's hunt had ended, yet he needed more evidence to show that the meat-eaters had lived together. And this is a picture of a reconstructed nest of fossils, dinosaurs' eggs. And it says, scientists know that dinosaurs laid eggs because fossil eggs of several kinds of dinosaurs have been found. More groups of meat-eaters. Now this introduces another fossil hunter. This gentleman's name is Rodolfo Coria, and he's uncovering teeth on a huge dinosaur jawbone in this picture. More evidence came when a paleontologist named Rodolfo Coria phoned Philip. Coria was calling from Argentina. He also had found a spot where a group of meat-eating dinosaurs were buried. So perhaps meat-eaters did live in groups after all. Scientists found more places with groups of meat-eating dinosaurs. These places were all over: Arizona, Montana, South Dakota, Utah, Mongolia, and Zimbabwe. Philip also looked carefully at the footprints of meat-eating dinosaurs in the Peace River Canyon of Canada. The footprints showed that meat-eating dinosaurs may have traveled together. And it's kind of a cool discovery because up until then, they thought that meat-eating dinosaurs or any meat-eating animals didn't travel together. They were alone because, if they're meat eaters and they're all around each other, they would try to eat each other. That's how it was with dinosaurs. By studying fossils, experts can create models like this of life-size adult Albertosaurus. So it's kind of a really cool picture just from the fossils. They're able to kind of figure out what he looked like or what she looked like. Digging deeper. Did some meat-eating dinosaurs spend time living and hunting together? Scientists still aren't sure. They can only make smart guesses based on the fossils they have found. Other questions are still unanswered as well. Why did the Albertosaurus of Brown site die? What killed so many animals at one time? A big storm? A forest fire? Philip Curie says that a paleontologist is like a detective. The mysterious death happened millions of years ago. No one saw it. Using clues, the scientist tries to tell what happened, how, and why. As long as there are fossils waiting to be found, the investigation continues. And that's the end of our story. So, pretty cool story. And as you noticed, a lot with informational texts, there's really no answer at the end. It's kind of just like the information, and there's evidence, and you kind of draw your own conclusions. And that's one of our target skills this week, is to make conclusions based off evidence we find. And we'll be talking about that a little bit later in activity. But in stories, we often kind of take what we learn and draw a conclusion, like what's the story about, or things like that. So I think that's about it. I did promise you the answer to that riddle, though, right? All right, so let's repeat it one more time. What do you do if you find a blue stegosaurus? Well, if you find a blue stegosaurus, you cheer him up. Get it? Yeah, it's kind of like an idiom. A blue stegosaurus means if you're blue, sometimes you're down and you're sad. And you're like Mr. Forgione and Miss LaBelle and Miss Snyder's. We're a little blue, we're a little down because we can't be there with you. But so if you find a blue stegosaurus, not the color blue they're talking about, they kind of tricked you. But what do you do if you find a blue stegosaurus? You cheer them up. So, all right, for third graders, that was their story this week, and I will talk to you soon. I hope everyone's safe and healthy, and hopefully you like that story, and we'll have a lot of activities involved with it this week. Bye.